Hi, my name is Anya, and today I'll be speaking about the most famous unsolved murder case in South Africa while making classic eclairs. If there's a case you want me to talk about, please leave it in the comment section below. So if you like this video, give it a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified every time I upload. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Today I'll be talking about the most famous unsolved murder case in South Africa. The death of Jacoba Schroeder, or otherwise known as Bubbles, while making some classic eclairs. Disclaimer, I'm telling the case as I've perceived it. I mean no disrespect to the victims or the victim's family. Let me know in the comments if I missed something about the case. Bubbles was born in Lichtenburg on the 8th of June 1931. At the age of 4, she started living with a cousin in Vereniging, up until the age of 13. Then she moved to live with her mother in Johannesburg for the next 4 years. In March 1948, she started working at a coal factory, but she stopped working there 2 months later. She moved into an apartment of a 52-year-old bookmaker named Philip Steyn, who she met at a dance. At first, Steyn liked having Bubbles around, but he soon found out that Bubbles had a habit of throwing a tantrum when she could not get her way. Steyn said, and I quote, "She was a young woman, a little loose in her morals, but she was very sweet, except when she was drunk. Then she became unmanageable." In June 1949, Steyn had asked Bubbles to move out. Bubbles moved in with Mrs. Griffin, who was a hostess. Word around town was that although Bubbles could not hold a job down, she was never short of money, and she constantly had guys after her. Mrs. Griffin said, and I quote, "Bubbles was a glamorous girl. She'd spend her day at the beauty parlor and her nights at the nightclubs, and she would be the most charming, until she had a few drinks in her, of course. Then she would become obstinate and difficult." On the 11th of August 1949, Bubbles went on a date with Morris Bulchick. The following day during lunch, Morris bragged about sleeping with Bubbles to his friend, David Pollock. That same day they went to visit Bubbles. She wanted to set her friend, Penny, up with Pollock, but Penny refused. The three decided that they would simply make up a threesome. Later in the day, Bubbles had been drinking a few glasses of brandy with Philip Steyn. She returned home at about 6 p.m. Once she arrived home, Morris and David were already waiting for her. Bubbles changed into a green dress, and the three of them set out for Pollock's house. His mother was in Durban at the time, so they would have the house to themselves. Once they reached the house, they were met by Heyman, who was Pollock's cousin. They offered for him to join them, but he had a movie date with his girlfriend. Bubbles, Pollock, and Morris continued on with the night. They ate and drank. At about 11 p.m., Morris left and went home, leaving Bubbles and Pollock alone. Heyman returned after his movie date and met Pollock in the hallway. Pollock said that Bubbles was extremely drunk and that he wanted her to go home. Pollock wanted to take her home, but Bubbles climbed into Heyman's car. He said that he would drive her home. A while later, Heyman came back and told Pollock that the girl was a lunatic. Heyman said that Bubbles insisted on driving, even in her drunk state. So he dropped her off at the Dunkeld bus terminal. Heyman said that Bubbles said a few words to him before he rode off. She asked which way was town, and she said, "You will be surprised to hear about my corpse in the morning papers." Pollock was furious and asked Heyman if he knew what could happen to intoxicated women alone at night. And Heyman replied that since it was so late at night, that no harm could come to her. Like, what an idiot. Can people only get harmed earlier in the evening? Now, nearing 2 a.m. in the morning, Pollock got into his car to find Bubbles, but unfortunately he could not find her. The following day, Bubbles was reported missing at the police station by Pollock, Morris, and Bubbles' mother. 30 hours after death, Bubbles' body was found at the Birdhaven plantation. She was laying on her back amongst burnt-out grass, 30 meters from where she was dropped off. Her face was turned to the right, and her left leg was laid over her right leg. Her left arm was pressed up against her body, but her right arm was flung out at an angle. She was missing her hat, shoes, and coat. There were scratch marks and some bruising on her neck, but there were no footprints and no signs of a violent struggle. Postmortem revealed that she was not sexually assaulted, but they did find some pieces of hard, clay-like materials in her mouth. It was found that these particles were not in her throat, but only her mouth, leading us to believe that these particles were forced into her mouth after death. During the autopsy, it was also found that Bubbles was suffering from a condition of the thymus gland, meaning if any pressure was applied to her neck, she would fall unconscious. The bruising on her neck indicates that she had been strangled from behind, from either a scarf or something similar, and that she had tried to remove it, thus leaving scratches on her neck. Pollock and Heyman were the main suspects and were arrested. Yet there was not enough evidence to prove that they had killed her, so they were let go. There are some theories about this case. The first one being that Pollock wanted to sleep with Bubbles, but she refused him, so he killed her. The second one was that Bubbles was robbed and killed by a passing African. This hypothesis was supported that amongst certain African people, it is customary to place something in the mouth of the victim, so that they don't speak ill of you in the afterlife. But there are some holes in this hypothesis. Like if it was just a robbery, why kill her? And why was the body laid out so neatly? The last theory is that Bubbles hitched a lift, and that the people who gave her a lift had wanted to assault her, yet they ended up killing her. They might have wanted to confuse the police by dumping her body in the plantation, and by putting limestone in her mouth. To this day, it is still unsolved. Leave it in the comment section below which theory you believe in more, 1, 2, or 3. And that was the story of Bubbles Schroeder. Until next time, bye!